AITA for refusing to lend my best friend money for her dream vacation, even though she says I'm being unsupportive. I, 35F, have a best friend, Lauren, 34F, who I've known since college. We've been through a lot together, celebrating achievements, helping each other through breakups, and supporting each other emotionally. We've always shared finances cautiously. We occasionally split bills for trips or dinners, but I've always been careful about lending large sums because I don't like money being a source of tension. Recently, Lauren told me she wanted to take a 3-week vacation to Europe. She's always dreamed of visiting certain cities, attending music festivals, and staying in luxury hotels. The problem is her savings aren't enough to cover the trip. She asked if I could lend her $7,000 to fund the vacation, promising to pay me back in full over the next year. I was stunned. $7,000 is a huge amount, and while I do have savings, lending that kind of money feels risky, especially because Lauren has a history of financial irresponsibility. In the past, she's borrowed smaller amounts for bills or emergencies, and it often took months to repay. I told her I couldn't lend her the full amount, but offered alternatives, helping her create a realistic budget to save over time, finding cheaper accommodations, looking for deals on flights, or even helping her plan a shorter trip that was more financially feasible. Lauren didn't take this well. She said I was unsupportive and jealous because I had the money and she didn't. She claimed that a best friend would want to help make dreams come true and that refusing was a betrayal of our friendship. I tried to explain that my refusal wasn't about not caring. It was about protecting both our relationship and my financial stability. I reminded her that lending $7,000 would put stress on my own budget and could create resentment if repayment became an issue. The situation escalated over the next week. Lauren sent several messages pointing out that other friends would have just helped and that I was being unreasonable. She also made comments about my spending, implying I could afford to be generous because of my career and lifestyle, while she had worked hard but still couldn't manage. I tried to remain calm, emphasizing that I could help in ways that didn't involve lending money, such as helping plan her trip within her current budget or assisting her with side gigs to save faster. She refused all suggestions, insisting that short-term solutions weren't enough and that she needed my support immediately. Mutual friends started weighing in. Some told me I should just lend her the money to avoid damaging the friendship, while others agreed that I was justified in setting boundaries. I feel conflicted because I want to help Lauren and celebrate her dream, but I also cannot take on financial risk that could harm me or create tension in our friendship if repayment becomes complicated. I even suggested a compromise. She could borrow a smaller amount, say $2,000 to $3,000, and I would help her fundraise or save for the rest. She rejected this, saying it wouldn't cover the experiences she wanted and that it was too little too late. I offered to go through crowdfunding ideas, side hustles, or budget-friendly travel options, but she dismissed these as unnecessary work when she already had a plan. Since then, our communication has been tense. Lauren has stopped texting me as often and posts on social media about friends who don't support your dreams and hold you back. I've tried to maintain contact, offer planning help, and show enthusiasm for her trip in other ways, but she sees my refusal to lend the money as a lack of friendship or loyalty. I feel guilty because I love her and want her to enjoy her trip, but I also know that giving her $7,000 would put me in a difficult position and could permanently alter our friendship dynamic. I've tried to help in ways that don't involve money, but it's not enough for her. I also feel frustrated that she equates financial support with emotional support, ignoring the ways I have already helped her plan and prepare. So, AITA for refusing to lend my best friend $7,000 for her dream vacation, even though she says I'm being unsupportive and our mutual friends think I should compromise. I feel like I'm trying to balance friendship, practicality, and financial responsibility, but she interprets any limits as personal rejection. This situation has caused tension between us and within our circle of friends. I want to maintain our friendship, help her celebrate her dream, and support her without putting my finances at risk. I'm trying to find a way to be helpful and present without enabling financial recklessness. But at the moment, any refusal is seen as a personal slight. I'm struggling to navigate how to preserve the relationship while setting boundaries that protect both of us. I hope it's possible to help her enjoy the trip in a sustainable way without compromising my own security or creating resentment. But right now, standing firm seems like the only responsible option. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my cousin move in after she lost her apartment. I, 32F, live alone in a small but cozy 2-bedroom apartment that I've worked hard to make a stable and comfortable home. I work from home several days a week, and my apartment doubles as both my living space and workspace. I value my routines, privacy, and quiet, and I'm very protective of my home as a space where I can decompress from work and life. My cousin, Emily, 29F, has always been close to me. We grew up together, spent holidays and summers with each other, and have shared a lot over the years. Emily has struggled with stability in adulthood, though. She has had inconsistent jobs, frequently moved apartments, and sometimes made impulsive financial decisions. While I've always tried to support her emotionally and occasionally helped her through tough situations, I've been careful not to let her stay with me long-term because I know it can create tension and stress. A few days ago, Emily called me in tears. She had just been evicted from her apartment and said she had nowhere to go. She asked if she could move in with me temporarily until she figured things out. She promised it would only be for a few weeks and that she would follow all my rules, respect my space, and not interfere with my work or routines. My initial reaction was concern and compassion, but I also felt uneasy. From past experiences, I know that temporary stays with Emily often extend beyond what is initially promised, sometimes turning into months of disruption. I told her I couldn't let her move in. I explained that my apartment is small, my work requires focus and quiet, and having her live here, even temporarily, could create stress and tension. I also offered alternatives, helping her find a short-term rental or Airbnb, contacting other friends or family who might host her for a night or two, assisting with her apartment search, or even contributing to temporary lodging costs. I try to make it clear that my refusal wasn't about not caring, but about maintaining my home and mental health. Emily reacted poorly. She accused me of being selfish and uncaring, saying that family is supposed to help each other in times of crisis. She argued that I was the only relative she could rely on and that refusing would make her situation much worse. I repeated that I wanted to help her in ways that didn't involve her living with me, and that allowing her to move in could create more problems for both of us in the long term. She insisted that none of the alternatives were enough and continued to push for me to let her stay. Over the next few days, Emily began contacting me constantly, sending long texts describing her predicament, calling repeatedly, and generally pressuring me to change my mind. Her messages made me feel stressed, anxious, and guilty. I tried to stay calm and polite, reiterating the alternative options I could help with, but she persisted, saying my refusal was cruel and unkind. I considered some form of compromise, like letting her stay one night or allowing her to leave some belongings temporarily while she searched for a new place, but I realized even short-term arrangements could quickly extend. Emily has a history of turning temporary stays into long-term arrangements, and I fear that having her live with me could disrupt both my work and my mental health. I also worried about emotional consequences. Emily is highly emotional under stress, and conflicts or passive-aggressive behavior could easily arise, potentially damaging our relationship permanently. Friends and family have given me mixed advice. Some say I'm justified, pointing out that boundaries are necessary for maintaining mental health and stability. Others argue I should make an exception for family in a crisis, emphasizing compassion and loyalty. While I understand both perspectives, I also know from past experiences that compromise in my home to accommodate someone else's instability often leads to months of stress and tension. Emily's insistence has started affecting my daily. Life. I feel anxious whenever my phone rings or when I receive messages from her, which has disrupted my work and sleep. I've helped her research temporary housing, offered to cover costs for a short-term rental or Airbnb, and assisted with her apartment search, but she continues to insist that my refusal is cold and selfish. So, AITA for refusing to let my cousin move in after she lost her apartment? I want to support her without compromising my home, my routines, and my mental health. I've offered alternative solutions, compromises, and practical help, but she interprets my refusal as rejection. I feel trapped between wanting to help and needing to protect my stability. I'm exhausted from the stress and guilt of this situation, and I fear that standing firm could permanently harm our relationship, even though I believe I'm acting responsibly and reasonably. I've tried to communicate that my refusal is about boundaries and not a lack of love or loyalty, but Emily continues to insist I'm selfish. I feel like no matter what I do, I'll either let her down or compromise my own well-being. I want to help her responsibly without turning my home into a source of stress and conflict, but it feels impossible to strike the right balance. I don't know if standing firm makes me the asshole, and I'm at my limit emotionally. AITA for refusing to lend my sister money after she got herself into a financial mess. This has been brewing for years, but the latest incident pushed me to a breaking point, and I'm unsure if I handled it correctly. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Emily, 28F, who has always had a bit of a reckless streak. Growing up, she was charming, smart, and persuasive, but also very impulsive. She frequently made decisions without thinking about long-term consequences, whether it was quitting jobs suddenly, taking on credit cards, or borrowing money without paying it back. I've tried to support her, but I also have a strong boundary when it comes to financial matters. I have a stable job in tech and have managed to save a decent amount over the years. I also have my own obligations like rent, student loans, and planning for future goals. Emily, on the other hand, has bounced between jobs and never seems to save or plan. About a year ago, she called me crying, saying she had maxed out her credit cards after a shopping spree, was behind on rent, and needed $3,000 to get by. I listened, felt awful, but I told her I couldn't just give her money because she had a pattern of irresponsible financial choices. Instead, I offered to help her make a budget, find local assistance programs, and even helped her negotiate a payment plan with her landlord. She was furious and accused me of being unsupportive, which led to a long argument. Fast forward to last month, Emily called again. This time, she had accumulated a $5,000 medical bill after a minor surgery she had without insurance, and she claimed she couldn't pay her rent either. She asked me for a loan again. I was firm in saying no, explaining that I couldn't just hand her money because it would only reinforce a pattern of poor decisions and put a strain on our relationship. She got very upset and sent me a series of messages accusing me of being selfish, saying that families should always help each other, and even brought up her childhood, claiming I never really understood what she went through. Things escalated when she posted on social media, implying I refused to help her when she needed it most. Some of our mutual friends reached out, subtly shaming me for not supporting my sister. I replied only to clarify that I was helping in other ways, like helping her find local assistance and budgeting advice, but I didn't engage in a long debate. She ended up borrowing money from a cousin who works abroad, and I found out later she spent part of it on non-essential items instead of covering her bills. The tipping point came this week. My parents invited both of us over for dinner. Emily cornered me privately, said she couldn't forgive me for refusing her money, and demanded I apologize publicly to her at the table. I refused, telling her that while I care about her, I also have to respect my own boundaries and financial stability. She exploded, yelling about how I don't care about her struggles, and stormed out. My parents were upset at the tension and said I should do more for family. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I hate seeing my sister struggle. On the other hand, every time I've given her money in the past, it either gets spent irresponsibly or creates dependency. I've tried to help in ways that don't involve giving her cash, like helping her budget, apply for aid, or look for side jobs, but she resists those suggestions. I don't want our relationship to be destroyed over money, but I also don't want to be manipulated or guilted into giving her money she won't manage responsibly. Friends and coworkers are divided. Some say I should just give her the money to keep peace, while others agree that setting firm boundaries is healthy and that enabling her would be harmful. I can see both sides, but I feel like I've already done more than enough by guiding her and helping her seek other solutions. AITA for refusing to lend my sister money, even though it's caused family tension and hurt her feelings. AITA for refusing to let my brother move in with me indefinitely, even though he says I owe him after I inherited my parents' house. This is going to be long, but I need to explain everything so people understand why I feel conflicted. I, 35F, recently inherited my parents' house after they passed away within a short period of time. The house is modest, but has been in the family for decades. My younger brother, Ethan, 29M, has always had trouble with stability. He has bounced from job to job, often struggles to pay rent on time, and has never been able to save or maintain a long-term residence. Despite that, we were close growing up, and I've always wanted to support him without enabling him. A few weeks after the funeral, Ethan called me in a panic. He had been evicted from his apartment and claimed he had nowhere to go. He asked if he could move in with me temporarily while he got back on his feet. I was still processing grief and wasn't sure how to handle the situation, but I wanted to help, so I agreed to a few weeks. I told him clearly that he needed to actively look for a new job and apartment, and that my home could only be a temporary solution. Ethan agreed. The first week was manageable. He stayed in the guest room, helped minimally around the house, and seemed motivated to get back on his feet. I even helped him with resumes and job applications. But after 2 weeks, nothing had changed. He started spending almost all his time at home, playing video games, watching TV, or scrolling on his phone. He missed interviews without telling me, made no effort to contact landlords, and began leaving dirty dishes in the sink and piles of laundry around the apartment. I tried talking to him multiple times. I reminded Ethan that this was temporary and that he needed to find a new place soon. I explained that living with me indefinitely was not possible and that I had responsibilities to my household and my own life. He became defensive, saying I was selfish and unsupportive. He insisted that because I inherited the house, I owe him shelter indefinitely and that refusing was a betrayal of family. The situation has caused significant tension in my household. I live with my partner, Daniel, 36M, and our schedules and privacy have been disrupted. Ethan leaves his things everywhere, uses the kitchen and living room without consideration, and sometimes takes my car without asking. Even minor things like cooking dinner, relaxing, or working from home have become stressful because he disregards household boundaries. I have tried multiple compromises. I offered to pay part of a rental deposit, help him find a short-term sublet, and even extend his stay by a week if he actively pursued job applications and apartments. He initially agreed, but did nothing. Every time I bring up a timeline or set expectations, he frames it as me abandoning him and says I am treating family like tenants. He repeatedly mentions that I owe him for emotional support he has given me in the past and implies I am selfish for prioritizing my household. Ethan has also involved other relatives, telling them I am refusing to help family in need and painting me as heartless. Some relatives have called to pressure me, insisting family obligations should take precedence over my own household. I've explained my position, but they dismiss it and suggest I should simply let him stay to avoid family conflict. I feel torn. I do love my brother and want to support him, but I also feel manipulated. Allowing him to live here indefinitely under these circumstances is unsustainable and would likely create resentment between all of us. I've provided support emotionally, financially, and practically, and I want to maintain a healthy relationship. Allowing him to stay without contributing or actively trying to improve his situation would not help him. It would enable him to continue avoiding responsibility. I'm also concerned about precedent. If I allow him to stay indefinitely without contributing, he may continue to rely on me for basic needs, which could affect my relationship with Daniel and create long-term tension. I've tried to maintain clear boundaries, offered alternatives, and communicated respectfully, but he refuses to take responsibility. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother move in with me indefinitely, even though he insists I owe him after I inherited my parents' house. AITA for refusing to help my sister financially after she asked me to cover her rent for 3 months, even though she says I'm being selfish. I, 38F, have a younger sister, Sarah, 32F, who has always struggled with money management. She has a decent paying job, but over the years, she's accumulated debt and often lives paycheck to paycheck. She's asked for financial help before, and I've lent her small amounts in the past, which she repaid eventually, but it often caused tension and stress. Recently, Sarah called me in a panic. She said her landlord had increased her rent unexpectedly, and she couldn't afford the new amount. She asked if I could cover her rent for 3 months, promising to pay me back once she got a raise or some side work. I was shocked because the total amount she needed was $4,500, which is a substantial sum for me to lend, especially all at once. I explained that I couldn't provide that much money, but I offered alternatives, helping her budget more effectively, assisting her in finding a cheaper apartment, helping her negotiate with her landlord for a smaller increase, or even finding temporary side gigs to bridge the gap. I also suggested she could speak to her bank about a short-term personal loan or overdraft protection rather than relying on me. Sarah didn't take this well. She accused me of being selfish, saying that families should help each other in times of need. She implied that because I have a stable income and savings, I should be willing to assist her without question. I tried to explain that I care about her and want to help, but lending such a large amount could put me in a difficult position financially and emotionally, especially given her history of delays in repayment. Over the next few days, Sarah repeatedly contacted me, alternating between pleading, guilt-tripping, and anger. She would say things like, "I can't believe you wouldn't help me when I'm struggling, and if you were really my sister, you'd do this for me." I reminded her that I was willing to help in practical ways that didn't involve risking my own financial security, but she dismissed these suggestions as inadequate. Some family members got involved as well. They said I should just lend her the money to avoid family conflict and that it would be a kind gesture. Others understood my position, saying that it's reasonable to set boundaries and that lending such a large amount could cause more harm than good if repayment issues arose. The mixed messages have made this more stressful because I feel like I'm being judged regardless of what I do. I tried to propose a compromise. I could lend a smaller amount, like $1,500, to cover part of the rent while she figured out other ways to make up the rest. Sarah rejected this, saying it wouldn't be enough to keep her in her apartment and that it was pointless unless I covered the full amount. I also offered to help her find roommates to reduce costs or temporary sublets, but she insisted she needed my money immediately and in full. Since I refused, Sarah has been distant and has made comments on social media about family members who don't have your back and turn their back when you need them most. She's also implied to mutual friends that I'm unsupportive and selfish, which has been uncomfortable. I've tried to maintain communication, offer advice, and express empathy, but she interprets any limitation as rejection. I feel torn. I want to help my sister and alleviate her stress, but I also need to protect my own financial stability and avoid enabling a pattern of dependency. Lending the full amount could put me in a difficult position and potentially strain our relationship if issues arise. At the same time, I feel guilty for not being able to meet her expectations and worry about the long-term impact on our relationship. So, AITA for refusing to cover my sister's rent for 3 months, even though she says I'm being selfish and some family members think I should compromise. I feel like I'm trying to balance love, responsibility, and boundaries, but she interprets any refusal as a personal slight. This situation has created tension not only between Sarah and me, but also within our family. I want to support her in ways that are safe, sustainable, and responsible, but she sees these efforts as inadequate. I'm trying to help her solve her financial problem without putting myself at risk, but standing firm feels like the only reasonable choice right now. I hope there's a way to maintain our relationship while helping her in practical ways, but it's hard to navigate between empathy and protecting my own well-being. AITA for refusing to let my younger brother's fiancée stay at our family home despite her emergency. I, 35F, live in a house that has been in my family for generations. My parents passed away a few years ago, and I inherited the house. It's a large property with several bedrooms and a backyard that I've kept well-maintained. I live alone, and I've always felt a deep connection to this house. It's both a sanctuary and a reminder of my parents. I've been careful about who I allow inside because I don't want the place to feel like just anyone's hotel. My younger brother, Kyle, 32M, has always been the opposite of me when it comes to boundaries. He's incredibly charming, but he also expects people to accommodate him whenever he feels like it. A year ago, he started dating a woman named Rachel, 29F. Rachel has always seemed nice on the surface, but she has a tendency to overstep boundaries. For example, when they first started dating, she casually mentioned she might pop by to see the house because she heard so much about it. I politely told her no, I only host for family gatherings and special occasions, not casual visits. Kyle didn't push, but I could tell he found it frustrating. Fast forward to last week. Kyle called me late one night. He sounded frantic and said that Rachel had locked herself out of her apartment after an argument with her roommate and that she had nowhere to go. He asked if she could stay at my house just for the night. I was immediately uncomfortable. I don't like last-minute guests, especially people I barely know, and Rachel has a habit of overstaying her welcome. I explained to Kyle that I wasn't comfortable letting Rachel stay at my house. I suggested she could call a hotel, an Airbnb, or even a friend nearby. I offered to help her look for alternatives, but I made it clear that my home was off limits. Kyle was furious. He told me that I was being unreasonable and selfish, and that I was making his fiancée feel abandoned. He said it was just one night, and that I was prioritizing the house over family. I tried to explain that my concern wasn't about being selfish or not helping family. It was about the principle of maintaining boundaries and keeping my home safe. I told him that I didn't feel comfortable having someone I didn't know well in my house overnight, especially without warning. He didn't accept this and started guilt-tripping me, saying things like, "I can't believe you'd let a roofless person sleep on the street when you have a bed to spare, and mom and dad would be disappointed." Rachel ended up finding a hotel eventually, but Kyle has been stewing. He's barely speaking to me and keeps posting passive-aggressive messages about family, generosity, and compassion on social media. Other family members are divided. Some say I'm right to protect my home and set boundaries. Others say I'm too rigid and should have help in a time of need. I feel conflicted because I do want to support my brother and his fiancée, but I also believe that allowing someone into my home under pressure, especially someone I barely know, isn't reasonable. My house is my sanctuary, and I've always been careful about whom I let in. I also worry that if I give in now, it will set a precedent, and Rachel may feel entitled to stay anytime she wants in the future. Since this incident, I've been thinking a lot about whether I handled it correctly. I could have been more flexible, maybe offered a room for a few hours or left some basic supplies so Rachel could wait somewhere else comfortably. On the other hand, I also feel like people need to understand that boundaries aren't negotiable just because someone is having a personal crisis. I'm torn between standing my ground and trying to maintain peace with my brother. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée stay at my house, even though she was locked out and claimed it was an emergency. I feel like it was a matter of safety and boundaries, but some family members think I was cold and unhelpful. I want to be kind, but I also don't want to compromise my comfort and my home safety. I haven't spoken to Kyle since the night he called, and Rachel has only reached out indirectly through him. I'm hoping things calm down, but I can't shake the feeling that I might be painted as the villain unfairly. I'm looking for honest opinions here. Has anyone else had to navigate something similar where a family member's partner expected access to your home under pressure? How do you enforce boundaries without causing lasting damage to family relationships? I want to do the right thing, but I also don't want to feel like my generosity is being taken advantage of. I'm trying to be firm but fair, and I wonder if my approach could be improved without compromising my own comfort. It's been a stressful week, and I'm unsure if my actions were justified or if I should have tried harder to accommodate them despite my reservations. I don't want to lose my home as a sanctuary or my peace of mind, but I also don't want to seem unkind. I'm ready to hear different perspectives, especially from those who've had to draw strict boundaries with family or deal with difficult in-laws. Was I unreasonable in this situation, or was I right to protect my home and maintain clear boundaries? AITA for refusing to let my best friend move in with me indefinitely, even though she says I owe her after she helped me financially and emotionally in college? This is going to be long, but I want to give the full context so people understand why I feel conflicted. I, 33F, have a best friend, Kayla, 32F, who has been in my life since high school. Over the years, we've supported each other in ways that I thought were reciprocal. While I went to college, Kayla helped me tremendously. She lent me money for tuition, textbooks, and even some living expenses. She gave me rides, let me stay at her apartment when I couldn't afford my dorm for a few weeks during summer, and helped me manage stressful family situations. I've always been grateful, and I've tried to reciprocate whenever possible, but she has always reminded me, sometimes subtly, sometimes not, that I owe her. A few months ago, Kayla went through a rough breakup and lost her apartment due to financial difficulties. She called me in tears, saying she had nowhere to go and asked if she could move in temporarily until she got back on her feet. At the time, I was living with my partner, Matt, 34M, in a 2-bedroom apartment, working full-time and balancing household responsibilities. I hesitated because I knew adding another adult long-term would be stressful, but I ultimately agreed to a short-term stay. I told her that she needed to actively look for a job and a new apartment while contributing to household chores. She agreed. The first couple of weeks were manageable. Kayla stayed in the guest room, kept her space tidy, and seemed motivated to apply for jobs and apartments. I helped her update her resume, applied for a few jobs with her, and sent her rental listings that I thought were realistic. But after about a month, it became obvious that she wasn't making any effort. She started sleeping in late, spending most of her days on social media or binge-watching TV shows, and rarely applied for jobs. She also began leaving dirty dishes in the sink, piles of laundry in common areas, and personal items scattered around the apartment. She started inviting friends over without asking, sometimes multiple people at a time, which disrupted our household and our privacy. I tried talking to her multiple times. I reminded Kayla that the arrangement was temporary and that living here indefinitely was not an option. I explained that my household has routines, responsibilities, and a partner who needs space and privacy. I told her that continuing to live here without contributing or actively seeking independence would create stress and tension for everyone. Kayla became defensive, claiming that I was selfish and ungrateful for all the help she had given me in the past. She insisted that I owe her and that refusing to let her stay long-term was cruel. She also implied that our friendship could be permanently damaged if I didn't allow her to stay. The situation has caused significant tension in my apartment. Matt is frustrated because our schedules, meals, and private time have all been disrupted. Even small tasks like cooking, cleaning, or relaxing have become complicated because Kayla dominates common spaces without consideration. Our cat has been stressed by the increased activity, which adds another layer of responsibility for both of us. I have tried multiple compromises. I offered to help with a rental deposit, suggested short-term sublets or Airbnb options, and even offered to extend her stay for a strictly defined period if she actively applied for jobs and apartments. She refused all alternatives, insisting that only living with me full-time would work. She also involved mutual friends, telling them I was being cruel and refusing to help a friend in need, which led to even more pressure. Some friends contacted me, saying I should just let her stay because of everything she did for me in the past. I feel torn because I care about Kayla and want to support her, but I also feel manipulated. Giving in would not help her. It would allow her to avoid responsibility and could create long-term resentment between us. I've supported her emotionally, financially in small ways, and practically over the years, but living together indefinitely under these circumstances is not support. It is a burden. I'm also worried about precedent. Allowing her to stay indefinitely without contributing or showing effort could encourage her to rely on me for other aspects of her life, permanently altering our relationship and household dynamics. I've tried to maintain clear boundaries, offered practical alternatives, and communicated respectfully, but nothing seems to satisfy her. So, AITA for refusing to let my best friend move in with me indefinitely, even though she insists I owe her after all the help she gave me during college. AITA for refusing to let my friend move in after she broke up with her boyfriend, even though she says I'm being cold. I, 36F, have a close friend, Jessica, 35F, who I've known since college. We've always been there for each other during major life events, and I consider her like family. A few weeks ago, she went through a sudden breakup with her boyfriend of 6 years. She called me, very emotional, saying she had nowhere to go because she didn't want to stay in the apartment she shared with him. She asked if she could move in with me temporarily while she got back on her feet. I live in a small 2-bedroom apartment with my husband and our 7-year-old daughter, Emma. While I care about Jessica deeply, our space is limited and we have routines that are important for our child. I told her that I couldn't accommodate her staying with us long term, but I offered to help her in other ways, assisting her in finding a short-term rental, helping with moving costs, driving her to apartment viewings, and even staying over for a few nights if absolutely necessary while she figured out immediate plans. Jessica didn't accept this. She said I was being unsupportive and that friends are supposed to help each other in emergencies. She kept saying that staying with me would be temporary and that she would be careful not to disrupt our household. I reminded her that even short-term stays can create stress, especially with a young child in tight space, and that temporary often ends up stretching longer than planned. Over the next few days, Jessica kept insisting, repeatedly asking if I could reconsider. She also began making comments about my life, saying that I always put your family first, and implying that I was being selfish by not prioritizing her needs. She mentioned that she had supported me emotionally during rough times in the past, hinting that I owed her this favor in return. I told her that past support doesn't mean I have to compromise my household stability, but she insisted that my refusal was a personal rejection. Things escalated when she started contacting our mutual friends, framing the situation as if I were turning my back on her in a crisis. Some friends messaged me privately, urging me to let her stay and suggesting that I was being too rigid. I explained the limitations of my living situation and offered alternatives for support that didn't involve having her live with us, but most people seemed to think I was overreacting. I also considered compromise. I thought about letting her stay in our guest room for a weekend or even a couple of nights to give her a buffer while she found something, but I worried this would set a precedent for longer stays or cause tension with my husband and daughter. I also considered helping her financially to cover a short-term rental, but Jessica insisted she wanted the comfort and familiarity of my home, not a hotel or Airbnb. Since I refused, Jessica has been distant and curt in our messages. She has made several social media posts about friends who don't support you when you need them most and choose convenience over loyalty, which I know are about me. I've tried to maintain contact and offer emotional support, help her with practical solutions, and check in regularly, but she dismisses any support that doesn't involve living under the same roof. I feel guilty because I value our friendship and want her to feel safe and supported, but I also know that compromising my household's routines, privacy, and stability isn't reasonable. I'm trying to help her adjust to her new situation, but she interprets any refusal as a moral failing or a lack of care. I also feel frustrated because I have offered tangible solutions and support that don't involve having her move in, yet she refuses to accept anything less than living with me. So, AITA for refusing to let my friend move in after she broke up with her boyfriend, even though she says I'm being cold and unsupportive. I want to support her emotionally and help her transition, but I cannot compromise my home, my family's routine, or my child's well-being. This has caused tension between us and created awkward dynamics among our mutual friends, some of whom think I should be more accommodating. I'm trying to balance empathy with practical boundaries, but right now, any refusal seems to be seen as a personal betrayal. I want to maintain the friendship without sacrificing my household stability, but I'm struggling to navigate a solution that satisfies everyone. I hope there's a way to help Jessica emotionally and practically without letting her move in, but standing firm feels like the only responsible and sustainable option right now. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my best friend move in after she got evicted. I, 36F, have been living alone in my apartment for about 7 years. It's a one-bedroom space that I've worked hard to make my own. I value stability, routine, and quiet. And since I work from home several days a week, my apartment is both my sanctuary and workspace. I keep my home organized, clean, and peaceful because it's where I recharge and maintain my mental health. My best friend, Anna, 35F, has been part of my life since college. We became very close and have supported each other through everything from bad jobs to breakups. Anna has always had a more impulsive nature than me. She's had a history of short-term jobs, frequent moves, and some financial struggles. Despite this, I've always tried to support her emotionally and occasionally helped her when she needed guidance or temporary assistance. A week ago, Anna called me in tears. She had just been evicted from her apartment after falling behind on rent. She said she had nowhere to go and asked if she could move in with me temporarily until she figured things out. She promised it would only be a few weeks, that she would follow all my rules, respect my space, and not interfere with my routines. I care about Anna and wanted to help, but I immediately felt uneasy. From past experiences, I know that temporary stays with her can often stretch into months, and my apartment is small. Having her move in could disrupt both my work and personal life. I told Anna that I couldn't let her live with me. I explained that my apartment is small, I rely on quiet and routine to maintain my mental health, and having someone live with me, even temporarily, could create stress. I also offered alternatives, helping her find a short-term rental or Airbnb, contacting friends who might host her for a night or two, helping her search for a new apartment, or contributing to a hotel for a few nights. I tried to make it clear that my refusal was about boundaries, not lack of care. Anna reacted badly. She accused me of being selfish and said I was putting my comfort above our friendship. She argued that friends should support each other in times of crisis and said I was the only person she trusted. I reminded her that refusing to let her stay doesn't mean I don't care. It just means I need to maintain my own space and stability. She insisted that none of the alternatives were sufficient and continued to push for me to let her move in. Over the next few days, Anna contacted me constantly. She sent long texts several times a day describing her situation, sometimes late at night, and repeatedly asked if I'd changed my mind. Her messages started affecting my mental health. I felt stressed, anxious, and guilty every time my phone rang, which also made it difficult to focus on work. I tried to respond politely, reiterating the alternatives I was offering, but it didn't seem to help. I considered compromise. I thought about letting her stay a single night or allowing her to leave some belongings temporarily while she found another place. But even short-term arrangements could easily extend. Anna has a history of turning temporary stays into long-term arrangements, and I fear that having her live with me could create tension and resentment. I also worried about emotional consequences. Anna is highly emotional when stressed, and having her in my apartment could easily lead to arguments or passive-aggressive behavior, damaging our friendship. Friends and family have given me mixed advice. Some say I'm justified in setting boundaries to protect my mental health and personal space. Others argue I should make an exception since she's in crisis. I understand both perspectives, but I also know from past experiences that compromising my home for someone else's emergency often leads to months of stress, disrupted routines, and tension in relationships. Anna's persistence has started affecting my daily life. I feel anxious and guilty whenever my phone rings or I see a message from her, and stress has disrupted my work and sleep. I've helped her research temporary housing, offered to pay for a short-term rental or Airbnb, and assisted with apartment searches, but she continues to insist that my refusal is cold and selfish. So, AITA for refusing to let my best friend move in after she was evicted? I want to support her in meaningful ways without compromising my home, routines, and mental health. I've offered compromises, alternatives, and practical help, but she interprets my refusal as rejection. I feel trapped between wanting to help and needing to protect my stability. I'm exhausted from the stress and guilt of the situation and worry that standing firm could permanently harm our friendship, even though I believe I'm acting responsibly. I try to communicate that my refusal is about boundaries and not about lack of love or loyalty, but Anna continues to insist I'm being selfish. I feel like no matter what I do, I will either disappoint her or compromise my own well-being. I want to support her responsibly without turning my home into a source of stress and conflict, but it feels impossible to strike the right balance. I don't know if standing firm makes me the asshole, and I'm at my limit emotionally. AITA for ruining my sister's wedding because I couldn't keep quiet about her cheating fiancé. I, 29F, have always been the responsible sibling. My younger sister, Emily, 27F, has a tendency to rush into things without thinking them through. She's always been charming and spontaneous, which is part of why we've always had a complicated relationship. I love her, but she drives me insane sometimes. Emily got engaged about 8 months ago to a guy named Mark, 30M. From the beginning, something about him rubbed me the wrong way. He was charming, witty, and handsome, but there were subtle things I noticed that didn't sit right. He would answer calls in whispers, sometimes disappear for a few hours without explanation, and Emily would always brush it off as him being private or busy. I kept my opinions to myself because I didn't want to come off as controlling, especially since it's her life. About 2 months ago, I was at work when I got a message from an unknown number. It was a photo of Mark kissing another woman. I froze. The sender said, "I think your sister should know." I panicked because I wasn't sure if this was a prank or something real. I tried to ask my coworkers what to do without giving too much detail, but everyone said I had to tell Emily. I decided to confront Mark privately first. I went to his apartment under the guise of returning a book he had lent me months ago. I asked him about the photo. Mark laughed and said, "It's not what it looks like, just a friend." But I could see it in his eyes. He was lying. I felt sick to my stomach. I left without saying much. I spent the next week agonizing over what to do. Emily's wedding was in 3 weeks, and I knew if I told her, it would ruin everything. But I also couldn't live with myself if she married someone who clearly didn't respect her. I tried to tell my parents, but they said, "Don't say anything yet. Maybe you're wrong." I knew I wasn't. I had proof. I even debated sending the photo anonymously, but I realized that wouldn't help her trust me. I had to be honest. 2 days before the wedding, Emily came over to my apartment to help me pick a dress for the event. I had decided I couldn't wait any longer. I showed her the photo and explained everything I knew. She stared at it in silence, then started crying. She asked me if I was sure it was him. I told her I was 100%. She kept asking me why I didn't tell her sooner, why I hadn't confronted him with her. I explained that I wanted her to make her own decision and that I was trying to protect her from heartbreak, but she didn't hear me. She stormed out, telling me I had ruined everything. On the wedding day, Emily's mood was tense. She barely spoke to me, and I tried to apologize without making her angrier. During the ceremony, she looked at me with a mix of hatred and sadness. After the vows, she pulled me aside and shouted, "How could you do this to me? This was my day, and you decided to turn it into a nightmare." I tried to explain that she needed to know before making a lifelong mistake, but she didn't want to hear it. She refused to talk to me for the rest of the day. Mark, for his part, was caught off guard. The other woman showed up at the reception, and Emily confronted him in front of everyone. He didn't deny it this time. The entire wedding turned into chaos. Some guests were shocked, some were angry, and some tried to console Emily. Emily's fiancé, who was supposed to be the center of the celebration, left early, humiliated. After the wedding, Emily didn't speak to me for over a month. Our parents were angry too, saying I should have handled it differently, maybe waited until after the ceremony. My friends are divided. Some think I did the right thing, saving her from a toxic marriage, while others think I should have stayed out of it entirely. I understand their point, but I also can't help but feel that telling Emily was the responsible and ethical choice. I ruined her wedding day, yes, but I also prevented her from marrying someone who would have hurt her in unimaginable ways. I've tried to apologize for the timing, for the way it unfolded, but Emily hasn't forgiven me. I feel like I did the right thing, but I also feel guilty because our relationship is strained, and I can't shake the feeling that I should have found a different way to handle it. So, Reddit AITA for telling my sister about her fiancé's cheating and essentially ruining her wedding day. I keep going back and forth between thinking I saved her from a huge mistake and thinking I was too harsh and selfish in how I revealed the truth. AITA for refusing to let my childhood friend move in with me indefinitely, even though she insists I owe her after everything she did for me in college. This is going to be long, but I want to give the full context so people understand why I feel conflicted. I, 34F, have a friend, Sophie, 33F, who has been in my life since we were kids. We grew up together, went to the same schools, and have always supported each other through challenges, both personal and academic. During college, Sophie helped me tremendously. She lent me money for tuition and books, let me stay with her for a couple of weeks when I couldn't afford my dorm over the summer, gave me rides when I had no transportation, and supported me emotionally through family and academic stress. I have always been grateful, and I've tried to reciprocate in small ways over the years. But she often reminds me, sometimes subtly, sometimes outright, that I owe her for all she did. A few months ago, Sophie went through a messy breakup and lost her apartment due to financial difficulties. She called me, panicked, saying she had nowhere to go and asking if she could move in temporarily while she got back on her feet. At the time, I was living with my partner, Aaron, 35M, in a modest two-bedroom apartment, working full-time and balancing household responsibilities. I hesitated because I knew adding another adult long-term would be challenging, but I ultimately agreed to a short-term stay. I told her clearly that she needed to actively find a job and a new apartment while contributing to household chores. Sophie agreed. The first couple of weeks went smoothly. She stayed in the guest room, kept her area tidy, and seemed motivated to apply for jobs and apartments. I helped her update her resume and applied for positions with her. I also sent her rental listings and helped her fill out applications. But after about a month, it became clear she wasn't taking the situation seriously. She began sleeping in late, spending most of her days on social media or binge-watching TV shows, and rarely applied for jobs or responded to rental leads. She started leaving dirty dishes in the sink, piles of laundry in common areas, and personal items scattered around the apartment. She also began inviting friends over frequently without asking, sometimes multiple people at a time, which disrupted our household and our privacy. I tried multiple serious conversations with her. I reminded Sophie that the arrangement was temporary and that living here indefinitely was not an option. I explained that my household has routines, responsibilities, and a partner who needs privacy and space. I told her that continuing to live here without contributing or actively seeking independence would create stress and tension for everyone. Sophie became defensive, claiming that I was selfish and ungrateful for all the help she had given me in the past. She insisted that I owe her, and that refusing to let her stay long-term was cruel. She also implied that our friendship could be permanently damaged if I didn't allow her to stay. The situation has caused significant tension in my apartment. Aaron is frustrated because our routines, meals, and private time have all been disrupted. Even minor tasks like cooking, cleaning, or relaxing have become complicated because Sophie dominates common areas without consideration. Our cat has been stressed by the increased activity, which adds another layer of responsibility for both of us. I have tried multiple compromises. I offered to help with a rental deposit, suggested short-term sublets or Airbnb options, and even offered to extend her stay for a strictly defined period if she actively applied for jobs and apartments. She refused all alternatives, insisting that only living with me full-time would work. She also involved other friends, telling them I was being cruel and refusing to help a friend in need, which led to even more pressure. Some mutual friends reached out, suggesting I should just let her stay because of everything she did for me in the past. I feel torn because I care about Sophie and want to support her, but I also feel manipulated. Giving in would not help her. It would allow her to avoid responsibility and could create long-term resentment on both sides. I've supported her emotionally, financially in small ways, and practically over the years, but living together indefinitely under these circumstances is not support. It is a burden. I'm also worried about precedent. Allowing her to stay indefinitely without contributing or showing effort could encourage her to rely on me for other aspects of her life, permanently altering our relationship and household dynamics. I've tried maintaining clear boundaries, offered practical alternatives, and communicated respectfully, but nothing seems to satisfy her. So, AITA for refusing to let my childhood friend move in with me indefinitely, even though she insists I owe her after everything she did to help me in college. AITA for confronting my sister over her parenting choices and risking our entire family dynamic. So, this is going to be long because there's a lot of history and context, but I'll try to keep it as clear as possible. I'm 34F, and my sister, 32F, has a 6-year-old son. Growing up, my sister and I were close, but had our differences. I was the more responsible, rule-following kid, and she was the free spirit, which often drove our parents crazy. Fast forward to adulthood, we've remained relatively close, but our lifestyles couldn't be more different. I have a steady career in finance, a house, and a very structured life. She is a creative, works freelance, and her life has always been more chaotic. That's fine. I've always supported her, but recently things have escalated to the point where I feel like I had to speak up. My sister's son, let's call him Max, is a bright, funny kid, but he has a lot of energy and needs routine. My sister, on the other hand, has never been one for schedules. She often lets him eat whatever he wants, skip naps, and stay up late because she thinks children should explore their own schedules and not be constrained by adult rules. I try to laugh it off initially, but over the years, I've noticed patterns that worry me. Max is often cranky, has trouble focusing, and struggles in school. He's also developed some behaviors that I think are a direct result of inconsistent boundaries, like throwing tantrums when things don't go his way and not listening to teachers or other adults. A few months ago, I had Max for a weekend because my sister had to travel for work. I spent Friday to Sunday with him, and we had a relatively structured routine: regular meals, bedtime, some quiet reading time, and outdoor play. By Sunday, he was sleeping well, eating without fuss, and actually seemed calmer. When I returned him to my sister, she was visibly frustrated because he wanted to continue going to bed on time and had refused to eat a bag of candy she had bought him. That's when the tension started. She accused me of trying to control her parenting and said I was making Max rigid. I tried to explain that I was just trying to maintain some structure for him while he was with me, but she didn't see it that way. The real conflict came last week. We were having a family dinner with our parents and other relatives. My sister brought Max, and it became immediately obvious that he was overtired and overstimulated. He was whining, throwing food, and yelling whenever someone tried to tell him no. I was frustrated, but I tried to stay calm. After dinner, once we were home, I pulled my sister aside and calmly explained that I was concerned about Max's behavior, and I thought some of his tantrums and difficulties might be related to the lack of structure and boundaries at home. I told her I wasn't judging her, but as someone who's worked with kids professionally for a long time, I wanted to offer advice and help if she wanted it. Her reaction was immediate and explosive. She accused me of being controlling, selfish, and of trying to turn the family against her. She said that my concern was really about making her look bad and that I had no right to interfere in her parenting. She refused to discuss it further and left the room visibly upset. Our parents tried to mediate, but my sister refused to talk to me for the rest of the night. Since then, she's been avoiding me entirely. She doesn't answer calls or texts, and she hasn't spoken to me at family gatherings. Our parents are frustrated because the whole family dynamic has become tense, and I feel awful because I didn't intend to hurt her. I genuinely care about her and Max, but I also feel like I can't just watch as he struggles and say nothing. I'm torn between wanting to maintain a relationship with my sister and feeling responsible for advocating for Max's well-being. A few friends have said I may have overstepped by confronting her directly instead of letting her come to me for advice. But I also worry that if I wait, Max could develop more serious behavioral issues. I've considered writing her a long, heartfelt message explaining my intentions, but I don't want to make things worse if she perceives it as meddling. So, AITA for confronting my sister about her parenting choices, even though it risked our family relationship? I feel like I acted out of genuine concern for Max, but I'm starting to wonder if I should have stayed silent and let her learn on her own. I'm honestly torn, and I feel like no matter what I do, I've caused a rift in our family that might not be reparable. I just want to clarify that I'm not trying to control her life or make her feel bad. I'm trying to support her and help Max thrive. I also know that parenting is personal and emotional, and I understand why she was defensive. But I can't ignore my instincts as someone who cares deeply about children's well-being. My sister has always been sensitive to criticism, so I know that played a role in her reaction, but I still can't shake the feeling that I should have spoken up sooner. The tension hasn't eased, and I've been avoiding contact to give her space, but the silence is almost worse than the argument. Our parents keep asking me to reach out and make peace, but I'm hesitant because I don't want to seem like I'm conceding that her behavior is fine. I've also thought about suggesting family therapy or parenting workshops, but I worry that this might push her further away. I feel like I'm stuck in a situation where any action I take could damage the relationship further. I know my sister feels attacked, and part of me wishes I had approached the conversation differently. Maybe I could have asked more questions instead of offering advice. Maybe I should have waited until she explicitly asked for my opinion. But on the other hand, I can't ignore signs that Max is struggling and might benefit from some guidance and structure. In summary, I'm caught between wanting to support my sister and protect my nephew's well-being. I understand parenting is incredibly personal, and my approach might have come across as judgmental, even though my intentions were good. I feel like I acted in the best interest of Max, but the fallout has been severe, and now our entire family dynamic is tense. I'm questioning whether I should have stayed silent or handled it in a different way, but I also wonder if staying silent would have been neglectful of the warning signs I saw in Max AITA for intervening, or am I justified in speaking up even if it caused conflict? I want to repair the relationship, but I also feel like I need to stand by my concern for Max. I'm desperate for perspective from people who can see both sides, because I honestly can't tell if I was wrong here. I love my sister, and I love my nephew, but I feel like I've inadvertently created a rift that might never heal, and I'm not sure how to fix it without either compromising my principles or pushing her further away. AITA for refusing to let my cousin move in after he got evicted, which caused a massive family fight. I, 40F, have a cousin, Liam, 28M, who has always been impulsive and unreliable. Growing up, he was the fun cousin, charming, energetic, and a little reckless. As adults, he's had trouble holding steady jobs and managing money. Over the years, he's often relied on family members to help him out of tight situations, and while I've always tried to support him emotionally, I've learned to be cautious about offering extended financial or housing help because it usually leads to more problems. Recently, Liam was evicted from his apartment. He called me one evening, panicked and upset, saying he had nowhere to go and asking if he could move in with me until he figured things out. My husband, James, 42M, and I live with our 2 children, ages 9 and 6, in a modest 2-bedroom house. We have a very structured routine for the kids, strict rules about guests, and a general expectation of stability. The idea of adding another adult with no income and a history of irresponsibility felt overwhelming and stressful. I told Liam that he could not move in permanently, but I offered alternatives. I suggested he stay in a short-term rental or with a friend, and I offered to help cover part of the cost. I also offered to help him find a new job, assist with applications, and help him budget for living independently. I wanted to help him without creating chaos in my home. Liam, however, insisted that moving in was the only solution. He argued that family should always step up in times of need and claimed that refusing him help was selfish and cruel. The situation escalated when Liam called our parents. They immediately took his side, saying I should let him stay and that my refusal was heartless. I explained that I was not refusing to help, but that allowing him to move in would disrupt our household, create tension for my children, and likely lead to ongoing conflict. I also reminded them of Liam's history. Previous temporary stays with family often ended up lasting weeks or months, with him ignoring house rules and creating stress. My parents accused me of prioritizing my comfort over family and said I needed a compromise. The conflict reached a peak during a family dinner. Liam confronted me directly, yelling that I was being cold, controlling, and unsupportive. He claimed I was punishing him for getting evicted and trying to teach him a lesson in a cruel way. Our parents reinforced his claims, saying I needed to show compassion and that family obligations should come before convenience or household rules. James tried to intervene, explaining that having an adult move into our house under these circumstances could create stress, disrupt routines, and even affect our children emotionally. Liam dismissed his concerns and continued to insist that I was being unreasonable. Extended family members attempted to mediate. Some suggested compromises like allowing Liam to stay in the basement or a spare bedroom for a few days. I explained that even short-term stays could easily extend indefinitely given his history, and that I had already offered other ways to help him that he refused. These included paying for temporary housing, helping him apply for jobs, and assisting with budgeting and planning for independence. Liam rejected all alternatives that didn't involve moving in. After the confrontation, Liam left angrily and has since been sending passive-aggressive texts, implying that I don't care about him or family. Our parents are still upset, saying I should have just given in, and that my refusal caused unnecessary family tension. Some extended family members sympathize with me, recognizing the potential problems of hosting someone with no income and a history of ignoring rules, while others continue to criticize me for not doing enough to help. Family gatherings have become tense, and the issue is still causing stress months later. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I acted responsibly by prioritizing the stability of my household, my husband's peace of mind, and my children's well-being. On the other hand, my decision has caused significant tension with Liam and our parents, leaving me feeling guilty and questioning whether I could have handled it differently. I've tried to provide practical, constructive support without compromising my household, but my efforts have been rejected and interpreted as cruelty. I've considered allowing a very short-term stay under strict conditions, but given Liam's history, I worry it would quickly turn into an extended stay and create more conflict. I also fear setting a precedent where he expects to disrupt my household whenever he encounters problems. I genuinely want to help him, but I cannot compromise my children's routines, my household stability, or my husband's peace of mind. So, AITA for refusing to let my cousin move in after he was evicted, even though it caused a massive family fight and upset our parents. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she excluded me from the planning process. I, 28F, have always been close to my older sister, Emily, 32F, but our relationship has had its ups and downs, mostly because of our very different personalities. Emily is extremely social, outgoing, and thrives on planning and organizing events, while I tend to be more reserved and cautious. Despite this, I always try to support her and be involved in her life as much as I could. About 6 months ago, Emily got engaged to her boyfriend, Mark, 33M. At first, I was genuinely happy for her and offered to help with any part of the wedding planning she needed. I assumed that, as her sister, I would be involved in at least some discussions, even if it was just helping choose invitations or offering advice on minor decisions. I expected to be asked for input, but I didn't think I would be completely shut out. The first red flag came when Emily told me she had already hired a wedding planner and made some major decisions without consulting me at all. I try not to take it personally at first, thinking maybe she just wanted to get a head start. I asked if I could help in small ways, like addressing invitations or helping with decorations, but she brushed me off, saying she had everything under control. I thought that was fine. I didn't want to be a burden, so I kept quiet and focused on other ways to support her, like being available for emotional support when she needed it. However, things started to feel more and more exclusionary. She didn't invite me to dress fittings or taste tests, and even when I offered to help choose bridesmaids' dresses, she said she already had it all figured out with her planner. Then, a month ago, she posted on social media a photo of a gathering with all the bridesmaids and some family members discussing the seating chart. I realized I hadn't been invited to that either. At that point, I felt completely sidelined. I confronted her gently, asking why I hadn't been included in any of the planning processes and reminding her that I wanted to be a part of it. She replied that she didn't want my input because she feared I would overcomplicate things or criticize her choices. She added that she knew I had good intentions, but didn't want my style clashing with hers. She assured me that I was still invited to the wedding and that my presence would be appreciated. I felt hurt and frustrated. I understood wanting to avoid conflict, but I also felt that Emily's decisions were dismissive of my role as her sister. I tried to express this to her, saying that being invited to the wedding wasn't enough for me because I wanted to share in the process with her, as we had shared many other milestones before. She became defensive and told me that I was overreacting, that it was her wedding, and she had the right to plan it however she wanted. We ended the conversation on a tense note, and I didn't bring it up again, hoping maybe I could reconcile closer to the wedding date. Fast forward to last week. Emily sent me the official invitation to her wedding, which included a schedule of events. I noticed that she had planned a pre-wedding dinner with close family and friends, but I was not invited. I reached out to ask if I could attend, hoping to at least be there for the family moments, and she said no, saying it was intended only for immediate family and Mark's family. I reminded her that I am part of the immediate family, but she brushed me off, saying that the guest list was already finalized and changes were not possible. I felt completely rejected. On top of that, she had arranged seating at the wedding reception in a way that didn't include me at the family table. Instead, I was placed at a table with her husband's friends whom I didn't know. When I brought this up, she said it was just logistics and that she didn't want any family drama at the wedding. At this point, I felt invisible in her celebration and began questioning whether attending was worth it. I tried talking to our parents about it. They said that Emily has always been controlling and that maybe I should let it go for the sake of family peace. But I felt that if I went, it would be pretending that I was okay with being completely sidelined, and I didn't want to reinforce that kind of behavior. After a lot of thought, I decided to decline attending the wedding. I sent Emily a long message explaining my decision. I told her I loved her, I wanted to support her, but I couldn't attend a wedding where I felt intentionally excluded from meaningful parts of her life and where my presence seemed unwelcome. I made it clear that this wasn't about Mark, the wedding itself, or her choices, but about the way she chose to shut me out. The response I got from Emily shocked me. She called me selfish, accusing me of trying to punish her for her happiness. She said that I was overreacting, that no one else thought this way, and that I was making the situation unnecessarily dramatic. Our parents are now pressuring me to forgive and forget so that the wedding isn't ruined. Some friends I've confided in say that I'm justified in feeling hurt, while others say I should just attend and try to enjoy it, even if it's not perfect. I'm torn. On one hand, I want to support my sister and be there for one of the biggest days of her life. On the other hand, I feel like attending under these circumstances would betray my feelings and my sense of self-respect. I've always tried to be a loving sister, and I feel like my exclusion is deliberate, not accidental. I also worry that if I go, it will set a precedent that my opinions and feelings can be completely disregarded in the future. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she excluded me from the planning process and made me feel intentionally left out of key events and decisions. AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding after a huge family argument. This all started about 6 months ago. My cousin Lisa is getting married this summer, and I was initially very excited about it. Lisa and I were close growing up, though over the past few years, life and distance had made our interactions less frequent. I've always considered myself fairly neutral in family matters, and I try to stay out of drama, but this time, it seems to have found me. A few months ago, Lisa announced on our family group chat that she had picked a wedding theme, and she had also decided on who would be in her bridal party. I was surprised to see that my younger sister, Claire, was included along with a few other cousins, but I was not mentioned at all. Normally, I wouldn't make a big deal out of not being asked to be in the bridal party, but the way it was phrased in the message felt exclusionary, almost like they were announcing a club I wasn't part of. I tried to let it go, thinking maybe she had a small bridal party limit or that she assumed I was too busy with work to participate. A week later, things escalated. Claire called me, crying, saying that Lisa had apparently told everyone that I had been too self-centered to be part of her wedding planning, and that was why I wasn't included in the bridal party. I was shocked and immediately called Lisa to clarify, and we ended up having a tense conversation. She told me bluntly that she didn't think I had been involved enough in the family in the past few years to warrant being in her wedding. She claimed it was nothing personal, but it felt very personal to me. I reminded her that I had always tried to support her in different ways, from attending family events to helping with previous milestones like graduations and baby showers, but she dismissed these examples, saying that I hadn't shown enough enthusiasm for her wedding specifically. Things got even worse at a family dinner 2 weeks later. My parents, who were trying to stay neutral, had invited both Lisa and me to discuss wedding logistics for anyone attending from out of town. Lisa arrived with her fiancé and a couple of close friends. From the moment she arrived, she barely acknowledged me, and when she did, it was passive-aggressive remarks about how surprising it was that I had made time to come. Then she launched into a long explanation about how she was handling seating arrangements and that certain people had requested not to sit near me. I was blindsided and embarrassed in front of everyone. My parents tried to intervene, but Lisa insisted that she was simply accommodating guests. After that dinner, I decided to step back. I sent Lisa a text explaining that I felt hurt by the way I had been treated and that I wasn't comfortable attending the wedding under these circumstances. I tried to be polite, expressing that I cared about her and wanted her to have a wonderful day, but that I couldn't be part of an event where I felt disrespected and ostracized. Her response was furious. She accused me of being dramatic, said I was overreacting, and claimed that my refusal to attend would ruin the family dynamic and make everyone uncomfortable. My parents were upset with me too. They said I was overreacting and that I should put my pride aside for the sake of family unity. My friends have been supportive, saying that my feelings are valid and that attending the wedding under such circumstances would be unhealthy. Some extended family members have reached out privately, expressing that they think Lisa overstepped, but they also say I should try to mend things before the wedding, which feels impossible given how dismissive she has been. I have received multiple messages from Lisa's friends and other cousins, some subtle, some not, implying that my absence would be dramatic and selfish. I understand that a wedding is a big event and that people want everyone to attend, but I can't shake the feeling that attending would mean endorsing the way she treated me, which I can't do in good conscience. The most frustrating part is that there seems to be no middle ground. If I attend, I'm expected to act as if nothing happened. If I don't attend, I'm being framed as selfish. I've tried suggesting a private meetup before or after the wedding to celebrate her, but Lisa said she wanted nothing to do with that, saying that I had already made my choice by refusing the main event. So now I'm in this position. I have decided not to attend the wedding, but the family backlash has been intense. My parents are disappointed, some cousins are angry, and I feel like I'm being painted as the villain in a story I didn't start. I don't want to escalate things further, but I also don't want to compromise my boundaries and self-respect. AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding after being excluded and publicly disrespected, or should I swallow my pride and go for the sake of family peace? AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she humiliated me at my own? I, 32F, have always been the type of person who enjoys organizing events for family, and for the most part, I've tried to be the peacekeeper and the planner in my family. Last year, I got married to my husband, Alex, 34M, and I spent almost a year planning every single detail. I come from a family that values appearances and tradition, so our wedding had to be perfect in terms of presentation, which was stressful, but something I willingly took on. I rented a beautiful venue, hired a caterer, and even made sure every guest had a comfortable seat with a thoughtful gift bag. I wanted people to enjoy themselves and remember it as a classy, warm wedding. My sister, Emily, 30F, was involved in the planning only in the sense that she was asked to help with decorations and seating arrangements for a few family members. I gave her freedom to choose some things, and I thought she appreciated the opportunity. But during the rehearsal dinner, she started making snide comments about my choice of flowers, saying they looked cheap and old-fashioned. I tried to brush it off, thinking she was just stressed about the wedding. However, the next day at the actual wedding, she really embarrassed me. During my wedding ceremony, she loudly whispered to one of her friends, "I can't believe she picked that tacky dress and those awful shoes. She looks like she's trying too hard." I overheard her and confronted her, but she smirked and said, "It's just my honest opinion. Don't be so sensitive." My husband was furious, but managed to calm me down. Later, she told our parents that I was overreacting and making a scene over nothing. That moment ruined a part of the day for me, and I honestly felt betrayed. Since then, I have tried to maintain a civil relationship with Emily, but it's been tense. She constantly posts passive-aggressive comments about my life on social media, and while I usually ignore them, it has made me wary of trusting her. Despite that, when she got engaged 6 months ago, I tried to be supportive. She asked me to host her wedding at my house because she wanted something intimate and elegant, and she thought I had the magic touch from planning my wedding. My initial reaction was hesitation because I remembered how humiliating she had been during my own wedding, but I didn't want to appear petty. I agreed, but on the condition that she follow my advice on vendors, layout, and scheduling. I explained that I wanted to avoid any issues and make it a beautiful day for her. She reluctantly agreed. A few weeks into planning, she began ignoring my suggestions and insisting on doing things her way. She wanted a DIY catering option with minimal professional help, insisted on having a live band that she picked without consulting me, and even ordered decorations that clashed with the color scheme I suggested. I tried to remind her gently that I was only trying to make the day easier and more cohesive, but she said I was being controlling. As the wedding day approached, I started noticing more concerning behavior. Emily had invited extra guests without informing me, including people who had previously caused drama at family events. She also wanted to serve alcohol in ways I thought could get messy since some of her friends are heavy drinkers. I voiced my concerns, and she accused me of being overprotective and trying to ruin her special day. The final straw came a week before the wedding. Emily asked me to help with a big centerpiece arrangement for the reception. I spent 3 full days planning and preparing, including buying supplies, arranging flowers, and ensuring that the design matched the venue. When I arrived to show her the finished product, she laughed and said, "That looks ridiculous. I don't want it all." She then threw the centerpiece onto the floor, literally crushing it in front of me. She said she wanted something more modern without any explanation of what that meant. I was shocked, angry, and deeply hurt. I told her I couldn't help her anymore if she wasn't going to respect my time and effort. She yelled that I was being dramatic and told me to get over it. At this point, I decided I couldn't participate in her wedding. I sent a text explaining that I would no longer be responsible for planning, hosting, or preparing anything for the event. I said she was free to hire a professional or do it herself, but I could not subject myself to more humiliation and stress. My parents were upset because they wanted me to be there for my sister and insisted that family should stick together no matter what. Emily, on the other hand, accused me of throwing a tantrum and claimed I was punishing her because of my jealousy over her engagement. She posted about the situation online, framing it as me being selfish and controlling. I have since distanced myself from her, and the wedding went ahead without my involvement. From what I heard from other family members, the wedding was chaotic, the decorations were mismatched, and some guests left early due to the disorganization. I feel sad because I wanted to have a good relationship with Emily, but I also feel validated that I removed myself from a toxic situation. However, some friends and relatives have told me I might have overreacted and that I should have just bit the bullet and helped for the sake of family. My husband supports my decision entirely, saying I was right to protect my own mental health and dignity. So, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after the way she treated me at my own, even though it caused tension with our family? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.